We're pleased to welcome our good friend Doug Scott to Mass Bay RE this evening. He has a program called Cedar Rapids and the Iowa Interstate Railroad. Doug's program will include scenes from a short visit to Mason City and Cedar Rapids, Iowa earlier this year. The program starts with an inside visit to the Iowa Interstate Railroad offices in Cedar Rapids, followed by a tour of their new diesel shops in South Amana, Iowa. Also included will be a ride on the Iowa Interstate Business Train to see their car shops in Silvis, Illinois, and a grand tour of the Railroad Heritage Museum of Midwest America, also in Silvis, Illinois. Doug Scott needs no introduction to most members of Mass Bay, so without further ado, welcome back and let's go to Iowa.
This is tonight, and welcome to the November 24 Mass Bay RRE meeting. As Dave said, we will visit Iowa, and then following the regular presentation of individual slides, I will show a short PowerPoint multimedia of recent images that I've taken up and down the eastern seaboard. But that'll be at the end. To start with, though, back in the end of June, early July, I received a note that the Silver Star and Silver Meteor were running multiple hours late, and they had combined trains. Now, apparently, just west of Selma, North Carolina, where the Star turns off the A line, NS had put a couple of cars on the ground, so they could not proceed on their regular route to Florida by the inland on the seaboard line. So they combined the Silver Star and the Silver Meteor, making both trains very late. And as I said, I received a text message saying, hey, they're coming through in daylight in Hardeeville, which is the next town over from where I live, about 10 miles away. And I know a lot of you have probably seen combined trains, but I never had seen them done on an emergency basis before. So I jumped in the car and ran over, got to a nice spot where I knew I could see them. This is the combined Silver Meteor, Silver Star in the beginning of July of this year. You can see the two trains put together here. And going away. This location is actually the location of the former Hardeeville Depot, long gone. There's a stub end street called Depot Road, and that's where I can get to on occasion to get some decent images. Okay, now the major part of the program. I'm a member of the National Railway Historical Society. I'm on the advisory council, and I represent the Cape Cod chapter, the Western Connecticut chapter, and now the Potomac chapter of the NRHS when we go to conferences. We normally have two conferences a year, plus we have a conference combined with the regular convention when that is held wherever we are in the country. So our spring conference this year was held in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I had never been out there before, so I knew it wasn't far from Mason City, the couple-hour drive. So I went out a day or two early and took a drive up to Mason City. Also drove around Cedar Rapids a little bit to do some rail fanning. Start with, for those of you who are interested in trivia, here's Iowa's largest frying pan. They do have one, and they actually have used it. If you don't have to take the time to read everything there, but they do actually use it on occasion, and it has been used. Now, Mason City, Iowa Traction. I'd always wanted to see this equipment. I've seen lots of programs on it, so I figured, well, I was close enough to drive up and see it. Like every railroad, they have some beat up old stuff and the modern stuff, the more modern stuff that they use. Now, I was told that I should get there early in the morning. I wasn't quite early enough this day. So their activity had stopped, but from the way it looked, they just park wherever they're done for the day, must get picked up by a van to be taken back to their cars, and the equipment sits until the next time they use it. So it's just sitting here, no crew, doors closed. But at least I got to see it. It's neat stuff. I don't know how many of you have been out there to see it and then see it in action, but it's got to be fun to see working. This is also in Mason City. The Iowa traction does interchange with Union Pacific, and it looks like UP had fairly recently had a little bit of a difficulty and put a couple of cars in the ground. So not cleaned up. I took a picture. Then beyond west of Mason City is Clear Lake. Yeah, I knew there was a depot here. I belong to the Railroad Station Historical Society as well, and so I have access to the list of existing depots and freight houses and all that that the RRSHS has online. I looked up one, and Clear Lake has one, Milwaukee Road. I found it, photographed it. It is no longer trackside, or actually what was trackside is now a rail trail. So it's moved about 15, 20 yards away from that. For those of you who are interested in music trivia, and I didn't know this until after I had left Clear Lake, but that's where the famous airplane crash that took several of the early rock and roll pioneers. They had their last gig was in Clear Lake, Iowa, and took off and came right back down. And there's a monument there, which I did not know about until after I left town.
That was Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper, among others.
Yep. And then went down to Cedar Rapids. There's a lot of track, a lot of industry in Cedar Rapids. I found some, got to photograph some, as well as Union Pacific Mainline. RailServe is contracted to handle Cargill, new and old power here. And then there is a main line, the UP main line runs through town. I thought this was an interesting lash up of NS and then a Norfolk and Western Heritage and then Union Pacific, even though this is a Union Pacific main line. And I had not seen the 8103 before, so that was kind of a neat catch. And single track through this section, so I knew there were several other rail fans sitting here waiting for the NS, Norfolk and Western to come through. So we did wait a while, but as you saw, it did make an appearance. Cedar Rapids is also home to Quaker Oats. And I couldn't get out of town without taking some pictures of the factory. I guess it's the main factory, main offices anyway, corporate office. They do have a rail yard. They are rail served, obviously. And I was told, nah, you'll never catch a train on that bridge. I sat there for a little while, and sure enough, there it came. Well, while I was waiting for the train, I was entertained by these guys. Then Iowa, farm country. Plenty of farms everywhere. And Union Pacific does have a big yard, a big presence in Cedar Rapids with the Beverly Yard. There's grade crossing west of the yard where one can sit and watch what's going on. At least the comings and goings. You can't see into the yard. I had not seen the frozen food express car trailers before, so that was kind of fun. And DPUs everywhere. We had my rail fanning on Friday. We had our meetings on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we had a trip limited to 50 people to visit the Iowa Interstate brand new corporate headquarters, brand new locomotive shops in South Amana to handle the new locomotives they have, and then ride their business train. That was a real treat. They provided lunch, and we all by bus from the hotel got to the corporate office, got to wander around. We were given a short welcome by Henry Posner III. He's quite well known in the railroad community as a activist, and but you never know it by talking to him. You never know that he is high up in the ranks of short line railroads. And for those of you who want a little bit more tidbit of trivia, he and his family go to Provincetown every summer. So that was kind of fun. And his railroad parallels Route 6, which is also starts in Provincetown. So there's a little bit of a connection there. They have a nice cafeteria. Pink Cat was in one of the ladies' offices. The station signs are left over from the Rock Island, since their Iowa Interstate runs on Rock Island track, and they've used it as a wall decorations in their new corporate office, which is just one. This is just one portion of the several floors that they operate on. This is the dispatch center. Room to add more when they need it. Then we got back in the buses and went down to South Amana, Iowa, which was south of Cedar Rapids, where they have their brand new locomotive shops. And they were spiffy clean. Plus, they made sure that everybody who was working was out of the way and no wires across the floors for us to trip over. I'm very, very safety conscious here. This is one of the older locomotives, and they do some heavy work on this. We got it torn apart pretty good. I hopefully there's electricians there who know what to do with all those wires. I would never be able to figure it out. But as you can see, very, very clean shops. And parts and more parts. And then we got to wander around the yard outside. This was the locomotive that pulled our business train that we rode on. But all brand new space buildings. And this is one of the newer locomotives. Their business train that we rode was a 3-car set. This is former KCS, former Pensy. It's a table car now, but it was a coach. and then another former KCS and Union Pacific, another table car with the kitchen section. And one thing that I found unusual for me, of course, and probably anybody who's on the East Coast, is in the center of the shops in the men's room is also considered a tornado shelter. I find it strange to me to see this, but I guess anybody from the Midwest is used to tornado shelters everywhere. And then this is the full business train. We stopped in Iowa City. We had a freight coming in the other direction. So they stopped here, let us off to get the one photo run by of the day. Our train was actually stationary, but we got the freight coming by us. And one of their nice new locomotives. And trailing as a DPU was their version of a heritage unit. Rock Island track, they have a Rock Island painted locomotive. Why not? Then we moved on then towards Silvis, going across the Davenport, Iowa into, I believe it was Moline, Illinois, over across the Mississippi. And this is one of the locks on the river. This is on the Illinois side. And then we backed into the car shops in Silvis, Illinois. Brandy new locomotives here all over the place. Again, spotless, and they made sure that everything was cleaned up so we could go through. In both the car shops and the locomotive shop, before we actually were allowed to wander through, we had a safety briefing. In other words, stay off of this, not in a bad way, but reminding us not to be careful what we step on and not to climb on equipment, and general safety briefing for anybody who is not used to being in a shop area. And they had all their employees who were working out of the way so we wouldn't be interfering with them and they wouldn't interfere with us. Modern trackmobile. Then we got off the train, as I said, wandered through the car shops. And since it was an active rail yard, even though the Silvis shops were maybe a half a mile away, we had to get back on the bus, the buses that we had to take us from the car shops over to the Silvis shops. They just didn't want us walking across rails in active rail yard. So that was a smart thing to do. Safety, once again, was very important. Thanks to Kate Rinn, who is involved in the Heritage of Midwest America museum setup, we were able to get a private tour of the brand new to the Midwest America Heritage Group, Silvis Shops. And this is, if you recall, in the news a while ago, and I believe Trains Magazine had a big article about it. Union Pacific has donated the 3985 5511, which is a 210-2, and a 6936, which is a DDA 40, as well as coaches and equipment to restore all kinds of railroad gear. It's a huge building. I don't know if any of you have been out there, but it's big. It's really big. Some of the equipment, you can see the DDA 40, you can see the Challenger, and then this coach. They have full paint shops, regular, not only do they do mechanical restoration, but they have a full paint shop. And they do outside painting. In fact, they were painting CPKC coach for their business train in one of the rooms here in Silvis. As I said, it's a massive building with huge cranes. The UP coach, 5511, and in the back there, the tender is actually the tender that belongs on 4014. And here we have the Challenger on the left and the 5511 on the right. To me, the 5511 looks on like it could return to service sooner than the 3985, but they say the Challenger will come out first. Somebody asked me earlier what locomotive was sitting behind me on my my picture, and this is it. The open boiler door of the 5511, which is this one. I think it's a neat looking locomotive. I'd love to see it run one of these years. I hope it can live long enough to do that. And the 3985 is in a lot of pieces. This is the cab. This is the basic unit of the 3985, the Challenger. Looks to me like they have a long way to go, and I know it's not going to be ready next year. But it sure is different from when I saw it in the early 90s and rode behind it out of Denver, from Denver to Laramie and back. And equipment, all kinds of equipment to move boxes of stuff around. Two different views of the 6936. They have some Milwaukee Road equipment here as well. There's a connection to the Milwaukee Road 261 group because they're the ones that actually got the Silvis shops and work with UP to get all the equipment donated. At this point in time, we don't know if the Milwaukee Road 261 will eventually come down here. It may come down to have work done on it, but right now it's staying up north. But they do have coaches from the Milwaukee Road. And as I mentioned before, 4014's tender is here. One of the agreements that came with getting the equipment donated to from UP is that they have to get the 4014's tender restored and back to Cheyenne so they can get the tender, the 3985 tender, the Challenger's tender back with it, to couple up to where it belongs. And in order to do that, they have to give 4014's tender back. And one of the Chinese steamers is here. Of course, it's Iowa Interstate that is right next door, so it makes sense to have this here for work. And they do a lot of heavy work on their own. Some they probably have to farm out, but most of the heavy work is being done in here, as seen by this picture. And that's the trip out to Iowa. As I said, I'm a member of the NRHS and on the advisory council representing several chapters. When we have a conference, we usually go somewhere, have an activity, and then the meetings. Generally, the activities are open to the membership, whether you're on the advisory council or board of directors. You're more than welcome to attend the conference, take part in the activities, and sit in on the meetings. It's not just for council and board of directors only. Anybody who's a member is welcome to come to these. Now, as I said at the start of the program, I have a bit of a musical montage of mostly recent images up and down the eastern seaboard. There are a few older ones, but mostly new. Some of you will recognize some of the locations, and some will not. I think Matt Betzner will recognize several of them, as he was probably there. Anyway, so we'll get started here. Now, this has music attached to it, so for anybody who has their volume turned up and would rather turn it down for the music, now would be a good time to turn your volume down. Otherwise, crank it up, grab a beer, sit back, relax, see the show. All right. Hope you all enjoyed that.
If you open the Q&A, Todd Minsk has a question, which I'll just read. What was the circular metal plate in the last Silvis picture? That was the one where the worker was working on some sort of press or something like that.
Yeah, he's working on a boilerplate. It's a new boilerplate for one of the locomotives, but I'm not sure which one.
Doug, thank you very much. Great
You're
photography
welcome.
as usual. Some really nice looking equipment there. And
Yeah,
so,
you can't go knock on the door at Silvis and say, "Hey, can I come in and see the equipment?" You have to.
no.
But right now, and they're starting to have open houses now, and little yard tours, and as they go along, they will do more of that. Obviously, the more people that know about it, and hopefully, the more donations they will get, but also volunteers as well. They've got some paid staff and some volunteer staff at the moment, but it's still pretty much off limits unless you get a special tour or, as I said, go on their special open house days. But eventually, there's going to be some, a total restoration shop, a museum, operating. The steamers will be operating down the road. They'll be doing. I suspect that they may not be able to get out on the class ones with the steamers, but I really suspect that they'll be running on Iowa Interstate quite a bit with the Challenger and the 5510.
Great. Okay. So, again, thank you, Doug.